I got Mo Vaughn on my show. This is a good day right here. I get to talk to one of the greatest hitters.
Now I'm back in the game, just working with the kids, giving back to the game, doing what I'm really, really good at.
How difficult is that to suddenly have the thing that you're best at not be a part of your life at still such a young age?
What you can do to make an impact. And I think you'll never be able to enjoy anything like it is, the exhilaration of being on the field in key situations. And I hope that the game is getting back to understanding that the playoffs are an indication of how to win.
My guest today is a three-time Major League All-Star. He's also the owner and operator of the Vaughn Sports Academy and host of the MVP, the Mo Vaughn podcast. My pleasure to welcome to the program 1995 American League Most Valuable Player, the hit dog, Mo Vaughn. Mo, how are you?
Ricky, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me. How's everything going with you?
Doing great, man. I got Mo Vaughn on my show. This is a good day right here. I get to talk to one of the greatest hitters of the 1990s or any other era for that matter. Mo, I can't believe it's been 30 years since that MVP season. I mean, you look like $1 million. You look like you could do some bad things if somebody handed you a piece of lumber right now, man. Do you ever reflect back on how in the world have these decades passed by on us like this, man?
I think I was kind of lucky. I had my son and my daughter late. My daughter's now 21. My son is now 13. So when I got out of the game in '03, I kind of walked away on my own. I was lucky enough to get into the real estate business, the affordable housing arm. We did a lot of stuff for a lot of years. Had over 20,000 units across the country. Just doing great things, helping people. And then I had my boy, he's 13 now. So I've been playing and I've been coaching him since he was 6 years old, which really has passed the time. I think I left, I talk a little bit about, leaving the game. Leaving the game was very, very hard, a lot of undone feelings. And then, I wanted to move on, get into a different life. I did that. But once he started playing, 7 years ago, I'm back on the field. I have my academy. I'm coaching the game, coaching him. I think I've been very, very lucky to be successful, on the field. I was successful off the field after life. Now I'm back in the game, just working with the kids, giving back to the game, doing what I'm really, really good at. And it's enjoyable. I got a 13-year-old. It's a great conduit. I'm coaching him. I'm having a good time. I couldn't ask for much more. So I'm very happy where I am right now.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're involved with your son and back in being in touch with the game. What's it like, Mo? I mean, because being an athlete is so different. And you would know, but as an observer, it's one of those very rare professions where, in your mid-30s, suddenly this thing that you've done better than 99.999% of the population who's ever walked the earth, which is hit a baseball, play first base. I mean, you were elite. And then suddenly in your mid-30s, when most people are just getting started in their career, suddenly that's over and you've got to transition into the next phase of your life. How difficult is that to suddenly have the thing that you're best at not be a part of your life at still such a young age?
Ricky, it's difficult, man. I think, unless you're lucky enough to be a Derek Jeter, you're lucky enough to be a Cal Ripken, you're lucky enough to be a George Brett, even I think Mike Trout's going to end up doing where you start and end up in the same place. And you're ingratiated for us. 99% of us have moved on for different reasons. It never feels good for most of us who retired. I think the word depression is big. I think we know how to hide it well. And I think what has to happen is you got to figure out what you can do to make an impact. And I think you'll never be able to enjoy anything like it is, the exhilaration of being on the field in key situations and hitting the ball, a mile, and you'll never agree to, never will get to that. But just trying to find your place. And I'm so fortunate. I found two guys that I was trustworthy with when I retired, that got me in the business, that taught me a lot about a lot of other things. And then I was able to be able to walk on the field with my son and teach him the game that I love. So I've been very, very fortunate. But it is a very, very tough situation, something that you really have to put your mind to and deal with, and come up with things where you create value and you feel like you're making a difference for yourself.
Let's go back to the 1990s when you were on top of the world. I mean, there was a time when it was like the only things you could count on in life were death, taxes, and Mo Vaughn's going to hit 30 and drive in 100 every year. You could
Right.
just pencil it in. You knew that it was going to happen. What was it like for you when you were at your peak in Boston, later in Anaheim, when you were at the absolute pinnacle of the game as a left-handed power bat? How much did you relish that, and how much did you relish the challenge of going up against the best pitchers?
I tell you, I played my first. I came up in '91, up and back '91, up and back '92. And what I mean back is back to the minors. Then through '93, I got my first full season. I hit 29 home runs, over 100 runs. Then '94 came, and that's when I started to really understand how to play and capitalize on my abilities. I really developed a swing for Fenway Park that, it really helped me using the green monster, hitting the ball the opposite field. And then '95 came, and we were running for the division. We won it. I was able to have a great year, and I won an MVP. I didn't do well in the playoffs, but I won an MVP. And after I got that, Roger Clemens always talks to me about, your hardware. After I got that piece of hardware as an MVP in '95, then my game went to a new level. I think I had some great years, '96, '97, '98. I was just at my superpowers. I didn't want to leave Boston, in '99, but things happen, for different reasons, or for whatever the case. And I got hurt in '99, first play of the year in Anaheim. That's why they have those rails around every dugout now, because when I fell in the dugout, I did some real damage to my lower left side, and I was never the same. But from '93, '94, '95, '96, those Red Sox years, those were feeling strong. You walk the home plate and know you're about to strike. There's nothing better than a feeling like that when you're walking to the box and knowing you can really do damage. And that was a great time for me.
So, Mo, do the juices get flowing for you this time of year? October, we've just seen Ohtani have what a lot of people are
Wow.
saying is the greatest game that we've ever seen. George Springer just hit one of the most clutch postseason home runs we've seen. Mo, as you look at what's going on in baseball right now, first of all, how do you begin to put Shohei Ohtani into perspective? Because, going back, you and I are close to the same age. Going back,
Right.
looking at the game when you played, going back and looking at the game when we were growing up, the idea, if somebody had come along and told us in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s that there was going to be this guy from Japan, no less, right? But just anybody that would be a 50-50 man, but he'll also be a number one quality starting pitcher that can throw it 102 miles an hour. We would have all said, get the hell out of here. There's no way that is
So
even remotely possible. What do you think when you see what he's been doing?
I just think about at the end of 162 games, and I tried to play 100 and all of them. I'm not sure I ever did, but I was always up around 155 games played. Just the mental and physical toll on that alone, hitting on average 30 plus home runs, I needed a couple weeks to like really, get myself back together. Now think about him hitting 50 home runs, hitting 3 home runs in a row as the starting pitcher, going back to sit down in the middle of the innings, and then coming out throwing 100 miles an hour, but not even just 100 miles an hour. If you look at some of those clips of the pitches that he made on certain batters, they were all paint too. Like there were forkballs he threw to Christian Yelich that dropped away from the batter that was sick. You couldn't touch them. There were fastballs at 100 miles an hour on the black. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. Just the amount of mental effort I knew with the stick. I'm trying to get me 4 at bats and do damage. The fact that he's doing that and going to the mound, and then the miles per hour, the placement, the pitches, the forkball, slider, fastball, too, just the repertoire. This guy's the greatest to ever do it. I have to say that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I said the same thing the other day. Because even Babe Ruth, I mean, and we can say 100 years ago, he was playing in a segregated league. It was a much different era. Hardly anybody was touching 90 probably in
Right.
terms of the velocity of the pitchers. So setting that aside though, Ruth didn't do it at the same time, right? He was a great pitcher, but then the Yankees said, okay, you're a right fielder now. And then he went and
Mhm.
did that. To see this guy doing it at the same time, as you said, I don't see how anybody could conclude that he isn't the best that we've ever seen do it. Mo, as you look at the game today, game's changed a lot, even in the 20 plus years since your playing days ended. Starting pitching now, it's like if a starting pitcher gives you 140 innings, teams seem to be happy with that. We're into the bullpen, after 80, 85 pitches lots of times. Even if a guy is, lights out, it's like, Paul Skeens, he's out of take him out
Mhm.
of a no-hitter or whatever the case is, right? When you look at that and then you look at, everything with hitting, I mean, obviously you were one of the great power hitters, but everything now seems to be about, launch angle and lift and pull and all of this. Pitchers, maximum velocity, maximum spin, throwing fewer innings than ever and still seemingly going in for surgery as often as ever, if not more often than it used to be. When you look at the state of pitching and hitting today, how would you say it has most changed since your day?
Now you're a baseball encyclopedia. You know all of the terms and all of the things. First of all, I talk to a lot of Hall of Famers on my podcast, and I ask them like those type of direct questions you're asking. These guys are first of all going max effort. They're throwing the ball as hard as they can, as long as they can, and then they're coming in for relief. The game has changed to, starter give me 5. Let's get the best relief guys, and we're going to make it a relief pitcher ball game. Hitting wise is we're going to swing as hard as we can. Don't worry about strikeouts. Don't worry about hitting the ball on the ground. Let's hit the ball in the air. And you know what? That may have become once that shift started hitting. Guys just said, the hell with trying to go through it. Let's go over it. But I think if you look at the teams even today that are going to play in the World Series, what can they do? They all don't strike out, and they all make contact, in their at bats and hit the ball where it's pitched. And I think, and I hope that the game is getting back to understanding that the playoffs are an indication of how to win. In the playoffs, you're going to face tough pitching. You need to put a bunt down. You need to steal a base. You need to move a runner over. You need to sacrifice fly. You need to make the routine play, throw strikes, and pick up and turn double plays and make outs when you have to. And it looks like these two teams, along with Seattle and the other teams in Milwaukee, were those type of teams, and that's why they were in the Final Four. And I think you realize that teams like the Yankees and teams like the Red Sox and teams like San Diego, they're all free swinging teams that only do well in the regular season. But to win games, you need a supporting cast, guys that could do many, many different things. Hit with hit with runners in scoring position. Ricky, 2-out hits with RBIs break your back. These two teams, although I think LA has a distinct edge, I'm actually pulling for Toronto because I'm looking for the family lineage with the Guerrero family. The father never did, and I hope the son can, even though I love every one of those guys, and they know it on the Dodgers. They got one last year. But it's all back to timing, hitting in the right spot, going the other way, staying on the ball, put the bunt down, steal a base, and make the routine plays. And I hope baseball is getting back to that.
Yeah, well said. I had Brett Boone on the show a few days ago, and he was kind of echoing what you're saying about some of those things. Moving runners over, putting the bat on the ball. That there's value in that. That it seems
There's
like the
so
modern
much.
analytics, have really dismissed. Mo,
Right.
another thing that's changing in the game is obviously the use of technology. And we've seen this coming for a while. They've been doing it in the minor leagues. We saw it at some of the spring training games this year. The automated ball strike system, they're going to implement the challenge system where each team gets 2 challenges, and then if you challenge and you're right, a lot like challenges in the NFL, you get to keep your challenge. So as a hitter, is this something that you would have enjoyed having back in your era? Because, I know in your day you had to look at what was going on in terms of who was behind the plate that day and what that umpire strike zone was.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of it. Some guys got strike zones that go north to south. Some strike zones are east to west. And you had to figure out what name was behind the plate that day and figure out what you had to cover. Now, the funny part to me about this whole thing, and listen, gambling has made us want to be exact. And I'm not so sure baseball is exact, but with the interest of doing what they're doing, my thing is you got to get players that know the strike zone, and you got to use it at the right time. It's not just a free-for-all, like I'm going to tap my top of the head, in the 3rd inning. You gotta know the strike zone. You got to know when to use it, and damn it, you got to be right. So those are things that got to be calculated now on when to use this new system and electronics. And for me, that's going to be the funny part to me. I'm sure there's going to be guys in the meeting that go, "Hey, man, you can't tap the top of your head because we're not so sure you know what you're talking about." So it's a little bit of cat and mouse that they're going to have to play to understand when to use and who to use and what time it needs to be used that can best benefit the team and what they're doing.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mo, you mentioned gambling. We've just had this NBA scandal now that is probably going to be the biggest news story in sports for a while now. We don't even know quite what the scope of that is, but now we got a big name like Chauncey Billups who's dragged into this. We'll wait and see what happens. We've got Clase and Ortiz in Cleveland who have been under paid leave from Major League Baseball now for months while they're investigating whether or not they possibly were throwing balls on purpose related to these micro bets where you can say, hey, the first pitch at the bottom of the
Right.
3rd inning, you can bet on whether that's a ball or strike. When you look at where gambling is now, like how much all of the leagues, not just Major League Baseball, every league now is raking in that gambling money. When you look at how big this has become, the Padres manager just stepped down, and one of the things that was said among his stresses that he had received death threats, and some people are saying that the more that people are gambling on these games, the more there's going to be types of pressure or bullying or intimidation that could fall on athletes, coaches, and the like. When you see where we're at now in the modern climate with gambling in the game, does it concern you in terms of where we're headed?
It does. I mean, it does concern me in a way for the latter reasons of what you said. Like, and I forget. Listen, Rick. I'm a guy. I got 8 TVs in one of my places. I got, I'm over there watching every type of sports because I love sports. And I forget about the whole gambling aspect. I'm watching college football, boom, 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 everything. Tennis, I don't care what it is. I'm a sports guy. And then you hear the stories of the families of players, of people getting threatened because of the gambling. And you know what the problem is, though, brother? I don't think they're not going backwards. This is not going to come off the table. Um, and I think it's an issue that they're going to have to try to learn and deal with and understand. But with this gambling, you just have so many, you know, crazy people betting on these micro bets, as you say. I mean, there's so many things to gamble on. It's unbelievable. And tennis is the first one gonna, is the first serve gonna be an ace? All these different things are creating a big issue that they need to somehow control. But I do not have an answer on how they're gonna do it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how we go forward. But as you said, the one thing that's for sure, Mo, I don't think the toothpaste can go back in the
Ain't coming
tube
back.
at this point because there's just too much money involved in it. Mo, as we said at the top, you've got a lot going on, man. You are a busy guy. You got the Vaughn Sports Academy. You've got your podcast. I know that you're involved with Perfect Game. Let us know everything that you got going on, and let people know how they can keep up with you.
Look, it's been great. I got the Vaughn Sports Academy. We're servicing over 5,000, active members and kids and coaching and teams. And, we have a uniform store. We do a lot of stuff in the community here, down here in Palm Beach County and Broward County and Dade County. Along with that, Perfect Game and I have had a tremendous partnership, just working with the elite athletes, the All American games, the things that they do. We're the biggest, youth sports, venue that we have is the biggest in the world. I love being on the field and helping that out. But I tell you, man, we were talking about doing a podcast, and I was very, 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 very uneasy about the podcast because me as an athlete, when we get a mic, all we're doing is deflecting. We don't want to piss in the wind. We don't want to piss anybody off. We're trying to keep our emotions set. But I tell you what, the podcast has been the most fun for me out of anything I've ever done. I'm able to reconnect with some of all my friends in the game, give guys that I want to illuminate their greatness, let them talk about the things that bother them, and just talk the game of baseball. And I've had some tremendous guests, Bud Selig, you know, uh, Rafael Palmeiro, Kenny Lofton, Jamie Moyer. I just did Roger Clemens, Jose Canseco, and Jeff Bagwell, and numerous others. Uh, and it's been just a tremendous thing for me. It's been a way to talk about the game, express the game, talk to the guys, and have fun. And I think it's been great for my son, and it's just something that I'm enjoying. So all these different things, podcasts, Perfect Game, Vaughn Sports Academy. We're down here in South Florida. Come check us out. But it's just been a great ride for me, especially with the podcast and especially talking to some of the players of the past and my friends.
Well, I love to hear it, Mo. It sounds like you're having a lot of fun with it. And I'm going to check it out because the idea of hearing you sit down and just talk baseball, life, whatever, with some of these great names. I know that it's good stuff, and my audience, I would encourage to check that out as well. Mo, honor to have you on the program. Great to get your thoughts on these various different issues, and appreciate you making time for us today.
Man, however I can help you out, you let me know. I'm here for you. And good luck and keep going, brother. See you soon.
Thank you, my friend. He is the 1995 American League Most Valuable Player, Mo Vaughn.